Hello and welcome to Film Peaks, where we investigate where film peaks or valleys. I'll keep this spoiler free, but I will include a riff section at the end where I show my score and give some thoughts. I do it this way because my review is a reflection of the quality throughout the film, so some people might view that as a spoiler. I'll chuck it in at the end. Anyway, let's get started. This has been a great month for horror, actually, and an also very good year for YouTubers turned directors. We got stuff like The Backrooms coming up in a couple weeks, which I'm also very excited for. But today we have another one. Yes, we are talking about the latest film, Obsession. After breaking the mysterious one-wish willow to win his crush's heart, a hopeless romantic finds himself getting exactly what he asked for, but soon discovers that some desires come at a dark, sinister price. Written and directed by Curry Barker. If you haven't seen his short, The Chair, I would highly suggest going and checking that out first. But you might be more familiar with his YouTube series, That's a Bad Idea. He also made one other movie, Milk and Cereal, as in serial killer, but he couldn't get a deal to get it distributed or something along those lines, so he actually just released the whole thing to YouTube for free. So check that out too if you have like an hour of free time. There are some folks out there where if you're good at comedy, you're also good at horror. Like look at Zach Kreger, like Barbarian and those movies. I think Curry Barker is also in that camp. And the casting choices that he made for this movie are absolutely phenomenal. It stars Michael Johnston as Bear. He's actually been around for a while in things such as like Teen Wolf. I didn't watch that though. But him playing this awkward character was so fitting for this movie. Just watching him kind of stammer through some of these scenes just has you cringing in your seat. His counterpart is played by Nikki Navarrete. And let me tell you, she absolutely nails this part. This is one of the best performances that I've seen in a while. The way that she's able to just totally switch her entire demeanor like instantly is just so well done. You've probably seen the trailer, the poster or something, so you've had a glimpse of what that can look like, but it just gets way more insane than that. And you might recognize Cooper Tomlinson from Milk and Cereal if you've seen that. So obviously like they kept that friendship or business relationship afterwards, which I think is pretty cool. But he plays Ian and he is a perfect cast for this type of character. He's kind of the friend who just wants to party all the time and he's nothing but jokes and a good time. But he's also kind of a douchebag while he's at it as well. The other character to kind of complete the friend circle here is Sarah, played by Megan Lawless. She's not exactly prevalent throughout the entire film, but she does play a very, very important role. The gist is that Bear, again, he just absolutely always nails it as being awkward, fails to confess his love towards Nikki like multiple times. And to try to progress things further, he wants to go and buy her a gift where he stumbles across the one-wish willow. It's kind of presented as like a party trick or just like a novelty of some sort. And after failing what could be his final shot at confessing his love to Nikki, he ends up using that one-wish willow himself. You make a wish and you break the branch. He wishes for her to love him more than anybody else in the entire world. And as soon as he breaks the branch, it works almost instantly. And from there, the movie just kind of ramps up. The way that it's shot as he's doing all these fumbles mixed with the music that they chose just fits so well. The music overall has this sort of like whimsical feeling to it. So as you watch these supposed young lovers try to get into these situations, it just fits so well. And it also kind of carries over into the more serious scenes. So whenever that happens, you get kind of more of like a surreal feeling to it. And how they frame Nikki once she's under the spell is just so unsettling. A lot of the times she'll be standing like in the doorway with the lights behind her, so you can't even see her face. And it's at this point that you only have her voice to go off of, which just adds another level of eeriness to it. And the scenes that you do see her facial expressions, it just makes it even more like awkward or scary, or just makes her look psychotic. It's just so well done. Like a scene where she might hold a smile for way too long, a very exaggerated smile, almost like Pearl, if you've seen that movie too. There are just several scenes with all these micro expressions and even the exaggerations where you're just gonna be like wincing in your seat out of discomfort. Also, there might even be scenes where Bear is talking to somebody in the foreground who's not Nikki, but she will be there in the background, out of focus, and you can just tell that she's staring at him from a distance nonstop, like not even moving. And that's really the main thing of this movie. It's not so much horror as in being scared, it's just an unprecedented level of discomfort. And it's not just being uncomfortable with the way that Bear acts, but it's also with all the things that Nikki does too. You know, like even with her being a stage 5 Klingon, even to being completely psychotic, it's just such a wide range. And like the explanations that they give for her to do certain things, a lot of times you're just gonna be like, oh dear God. Now there is, like with most horror movies these days, some comedy tossed in, but I think it was actually done very well. There were people in my theater like full on belly laughing at certain scenes. It's written well enough that the reason that Bear puts up with some of the craziness is like kind of believable. Like how much could you personally put up with towards the person that you truly love more than anybody else? How much weirdness or craziness could you put up with? That dynamic hits hard in these scenes where Bear starts to question, you know, is it worth it? Is this real? Because he is the one that broke that willow branch. You might have also seen in the trailer, there's a part where Bear actually calls the number on the back of the box for the One Wish Willow to talk to some kind of spokesperson. And I think that was handled really well. You're really only given like the highest level explanation of how it works, and even like how the spokesperson acts is really well handled. A lot of times in movies, you know, you get to see the object that the main character finds and you don't get to see other people interact with it. Like we don't get to see what happens to others. Well, you don't get to see what happens to others here either, but it's at least explained or acknowledged. Like it is kind of the typical, like you just have to assume that it sucks for everybody else too that has used one, for the most part. Not unlike that one shit-ass movie, Wish Upon. I don't know why that comes to mind first, but it's just one that I think of. Speaking of other movies, I do get a sort of Talk to Me vibe here. I can't really get into that too far though, so I'll hit that in the riff section. One big kudos here are there aren't really many jump scares per se, although there is one very important one that I did not have a problem with. I think it was very well handled. I will allow that. But overall, the things that are presented to you in order to scare you were handled really well. There's these kind of like micro movements that Nikki has during certain points that really kind of, for me, raised the hair on the back of my neck, which doesn't happen too often. Like I was generally freaked out at some parts. And there aren't too many set locations here. It's really focused around this small group of friends for the most part, but it really does give you that suffocating feeling as things start to change. This is definitely one of the top movies to come out so far this year. It's definitely theater worthy, so check that out if you can. You will be thinking about it afterwards. But I think I'll call it here before we get into the riff section. So if this is your jumping off point, thank you for making it this far. Let me know what you think in the comments below, or check out the Film Peaks app. It's out for most of the world now, free on iOS and Android. We move on. All right, we've made it to the riff section. This is your last chance to avoid any sort of spoiler before I show my score and give some thoughts. Okay, so this is what I thought of the movie. I thought it was great. Not many movies you see will leave you feeling like this. But all right, so I do have a couple things that I want to talk about here. I mentioned the Talk to Me vibes earlier. The One Wish Willow branch being as sort of a device to interact with the supernatural. I did think that was kind of similar in some ways. I really wanted to know more of the lore behind that, but it's not really that important, I guess. But whenever Bear calls the number on the back of the box and he gets to talk to that nonchalant spokesperson, we get to hear Nikki screaming in pain like non-stop in the background. The idea that throughout the entire events of the movie, pretty much, that she's just in this constant state of suffering, I thought was messed up. And the scenes where Nikki gets to break through momentarily, I think was just a very nice touch. Especially whenever Bear is trying to just make the wish work rather than trying to fix things. He would rather maintain the status quo than get rid of the wish altogether and lose the person that he loves. Like he sits her down after doing something crazy and he's like, You cannot act like this anymore. He wants to maintain how things are without actually fixing them. And then to add another layer on top of that, there is a point where he's talking to Nikki while she's under the spell, and she says to him, she will be anything that he wants, but she can't be Nikki. And I think that was just very effective, because he can have the idea of her and like her body, but not her true self. And the foreshadowing in the movie I thought was pretty good. She gives him the rock that, you know, the tiger's eye that gives him confidence. In the end, he does get the confidence to actually do something, however irrational it may be. But the way that they wrapped it up, I thought was just such a good job. Anyways, what do you think? Would you use a one-wish Willow? How would you beat the system? What wish would you make? Let me know in the comments below or on the Film Peaks app, free on iOS and on Android. Thank you for watching this far, and I'll see you at the top.